Okay, let's move on to some key matchups for this game. I think someone can obviously talk about the offensive and defensive line. But Alex, where are you starting with a key matchup that you're focusing on?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the offensive and defensive line, and then the obvious one is Chase Young and Rashawn Slater.
Yeah.
I'll take that one. I mean, and it's not just what their college film was, but for me, it's just the difference in experience that they both have now, right? Rashawn Slater has not played football in a year. He played briefly in the preseason against the Rams, and that's about it, right? Chase Young has been in the NFL and is battle tested, right? So I think it's going to be a very different kind of matchup than they experienced in college. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. But if I was to go with sort of a non-obvious answer, I would just go probably on the defensive side of the ball, just how Michael Davis matches up against Terry McLaurin. I think that's going to be very interesting to watch,
Yeah.
especially with no Curtis Samuel in this game. That might be who, in some instances with speed, who you might put Michael Davis on in some certain scenarios, like they do with Tyreek
Absolutely.
Hill.
Yeah.
But now that it's just basically going to be Michael Davis against Terry McLaurin the whole game, I think that'll be interesting to watch just because, Terry is really good. I think that he's a great route runner, has some great release to him. So getting Michael Davis kind of tested here, like we said, with the offensive line, a little bit of trial by fire. Michael Davis really showed out against Stephon Diggs and a lot of other key games last year. So I'm curious to see how he does against Terry.
It's a great call there. Yeah, the matchup's going to be fascinating. Like you said, Stephon Diggs didn't do much against Davis. I'm pretty excited about him there. But then again, like Davis is now the number one. He has to be the number one. And so I'm very excited to see what he can do. For me, the key matchup is going to be not necessarily like a 1v1 or anything, but it's how do the Chargers get after Jamin Davis as the Mike linebacker? Now, apparently that's what he's been playing. I talked to Mark Bullock, who did cover the Washington football team with The Athletic. And he was talking about that actually Davis's strength right now is his pass coverage, which kind of surprised me. But so he's being asked to play the mic. So by nature, he has to learn and make all the calls. So he's been playing a little bit slow and taking a bit of time to get up to speed. In the first preseason game, I guess that there were a lot of guards that were able to work up to the second level in the run game and reach him. But apparently he gradually got better. But I want to see this offense really take advantage of him. Hopefully Eckler is out there as well, because that would help quite a bit. If you look at the first team reps at the scrimmage, Lombardi really tried to make communication on defense a problem, whether it be with motion or play action or running, some parallel routes right in front of and behind the linebackers to force them to make some sort of decision. Now, the Chargers linebackers did do a very good job because they're so athletic. But we'll see how Davis does, because he's not exactly a veteran like the other three Chargers linebackers are. And of course, the goal of your outside zone offense, your rushing scheme, is you really want to spread that defense very thin and force the defense, particularly someone like Davis, to make poor decisions and let the running backs make that right decision. So between the different passing looks they could give him and the personal packages that they run, different guys they bring in and out, I mean, of course, that outside zone run game, it should be very difficult for someone like Davis to make that right decision. So go get him, and then good luck getting around, someone like Slater and Filer off that left side. So I really hope they somehow find a way to get after him, and they should, because he's a rookie, and though he's a very talented guy that we all liked coming out of the draft, go after him because he's the rookie.
Yeah, that's absolutely a good call. I think if you're going to attack the Washington football defense, I think to me it's through the linebackers and safeties. I think William Jackson. They lost Ronald Darby in free agency, obviously with the Denver Broncos, but I think William Jackson is a slight upgrade there, and Kendall Fuller is arguably one of the better slot corners in the league. So to me, if I'm kind of attacking this defense, I'm looking at who can make plays, up the seams and kind of in the middle of that defense. So I think, we'll mention them later, I'm sure, but the tight ends for this game really are kind of very important in this game. So for key matchup to me, I'm going to talk about the Chargers defensive tackles versus the Washington football interior. I think Brandon Scherff is rightfully, ranked in terms of being an all-pro, Pro Bowl kind of player. He apparently has looked healthy and very spry. So not expecting very many wins against Brandon Scherff this game. But I think the center, Tyler Larson, and the left guard, I should have written his name down again, I forget. But those two are very workable. I think, we'll see what the tackles are. I expect a good day for the edge rushers in general, especially Joey Bosa going up against a rookie offensive tackle, which I feel like is not being mentioned very frequently. As much as I was high on Samuel Cosmi, I think Bosa is going to have a huge game. So that being said, going back to the defensive tackles, I think there is something to be said for Ryan Fitzpatrick's ability to escape the pocket and make some plays. And it's really tough to do that when you have interior pressure. So if the Chargers defense is going to, have success in this game, force some turnovers, get some sacks, I think we need to see some movement from the Chargers defensive tackles, whether that's Linval Joseph, Jerry Tillery, Justin Jones. To me, they can really kind of exploit the center and left guard duo and be able to kind of push the pocket back on Fitzpatrick and not allow him to escape. So that to me is absolutely a matchup to keep an eye on.
I'm glad you mentioned Tillery, or the interior defensive line, of course. But of course, Jerry Tillery is kind of the guy I really need to see here. I was talking to Arjun about this because I had a question a long time ago, and he was finally able to answer this question, give me some stats on this. The consensus last year, in my opinion, maybe you guys disagree, was that Tillery was solid in the interior, but the move to defensive end and doing what he wasn't good at sort of hindered his production. I'm wrong, I guess. Believe it or not, the stats are nearly identical as a 4-3 defensive end and a 4-3 defensive tackle. Granted, it's a different defense, but a defensive tackle, he had a 10.5% pass rush win rate, 4.6 pass rush productivity, and 20 pressures. And then he went to end, he had a 10% pass rush win rate, 4.2 pass rush productivity, and only 18 pressures. So at the end of it all, it's just like he wasn't good at either role. So now potentially focusing in as a defensive tackle hopefully will help him, and then Staley freeing up will hopefully help him. Especially since Bosa will command that double team. But I really want to see him perform well against a solid interior offensive line group, because I think it's a solid interior offensive line group. I don't think they're amazing by any means, but I do think it's pretty solid, like you said. So I want to see him perform, because I honestly thought that he was just a lot better as a defensive tackle. And then we went to edge, it was terrible, but it turns out he just wasn't good at either. So I want to see that next step, because he apparently has had the phenomenal camp and deserved and earned the right to not play in the preseason at all. Like, he was good to go. So now I got to see it, because I've been skeptical. I'd love to be proven wrong, but you got to show me first.
Well, and Justin Jones is in that same vein. Everybody's kind of talking about how he has looked, and Daniel Popper's bold prediction on Chargers Weekly was that he would have 8 sacks. So again, similar to the offensive line, like, this is when we're going to see it. You have a great opportunity against a so-so to solid interior offensive line, and Jerry Tiller beating Brandon Scherf on a play and getting a sack would be a huge deal for him. Same with Justin Jones. So that's a great opportunity for these guys.
I think Jerry Tillery did earn it in the eyes of the coaching staff, but in my personal record book, he did not deserve the right to not play the preseason. So I'm just going to put that out there. As far as Jerry Tillery, the difference between him on the edge versus when he was in the interior last season, to me, was never really from a pass rush standpoint, because you'll see something like that Oakland game, right, where he forced the sack and the fumble on Derek Carr. That was from the edge position. It was really the run game, because he could not play the defensive end from a run game position. He's not a great run defender in general, but I feel like he's better on the interior doing that than he is probably on the edge. So that's, to me, what the real difference was in that situation. But yeah, I think seeing Justin Jones, Jerry Tillery, and Linval Joseph for the first time this year against that Washington interior is definitely a matchup to watch. Sort of more excited about Linval and obviously Justin Jones, more cautiously optimistic on Jerry Tillery. I think he could open up like he did last year in those first 2 games against the Bengals and the Chiefs, which were very impressive. But just need to see it, because didn't see it in the preseason.